They found her just before dusk, curled in a rusted wheelbarrow on the edge of the ranch road. 2 sleeping children tangled in her arms, a dust-covered dog curled at her feet. The woman's boots were split open at the toes, her skirt soaked from creek water, and her head leaned against the wooden handle as if she'd surrendered mid-step. The twins couldn't have been more than 4. One clutched a biscuit wrapped in cloth. The other had a bloodied scrape on her forehead. The dog, an old black mutt with one white paw, lifted its head and growled low when the cowboy approached. His name was Boone Keller, and he'd been riding fence line for 2 days straight, hunting rustlers and keeping to himself like always. But the moment he saw her, he pulled the reins hard, not because of the woman, not even the children, because of the dog. It wasn't just familiar, it was his. Or rather, it had been. That mutt had belonged to Jesse Ray Morris, a 2-bit outlaw who'd left Boone's brother bleeding out on the floor of a burned-out barn 5 years ago. Boone had tracked Jesse for months, found his horse dead in Arizona, and figured fate had done the job for him. But now here was the dog, and here was her. Boone dismounted slowly. The dog didn't lunge, it just stared. The woman blinked awake, eyes dull with exhaustion. She tried to rise, swayed, and sank back down. "We ain't beggars," she rasped. "Just tired." Boone said nothing. The wind caught the edge of her shawl and flapped it aside, revealing a faint, familiar tattoo near her collarbone, the same marking Jesse Ray wore on his wrist. He knew it then. She wasn't some stranger. She was kin. Maybe sister. Maybe wife. Maybe worse. He could have turned away. Should have. Walked back to his horse, let the night take her. But she shifted, pulling the twins closer, one arm slung over them like a broken shield. Boone looked down, exhaled slow, and finally spoke. "I'm done," he muttered. Not with her. Not with Jesse. With hating ghosts that wouldn't stay dead. With letting his past keep writing his future. He bent, lifted the littlest girl, nodded toward the ranch house in the distance. "Get up," he said. "They'll need food." The woman stared. "Why?" Boone didn't answer, just turned. The dog followed. And after a long moment, so did she. The wind behind them whispered through the cottonwoods, like something old and unfinished watching it all unfold again. Boone kept his eyes forward as they walked the half-mile stretch to the ranch house, his boots crunching over gravel, the woman's uneven steps trailing behind. The dog trotted between them, never once looking away from Boone. The weight of the child in his arms felt heavier than it should have. More than just bone and sleep, it was history. Buried history. Boone hadn't spoken Jesse Ray's name out loud in nearly 5 years, not since the fire in Elkhorn Gulch and the night his brother died begging him to let it go. But he hadn't let it go. He'd held on, like a fuse that never reached the powder. Until now. The woman's voice came quiet, hesitant. "You knew him." Boone didn't look back. "Did. You his enemy?" "Didn't say that either." They reached the porch. The lantern above the door swayed in the wind, and the boards groaned beneath their weight as Boone unlocked the door with a flint key and stepped inside. He set the child down on a cot near the fire, then lit the stove with practiced motion. "Sit," he said. She hesitated, then obeyed, folding herself into the corner near the warmth. The dog sat beside her, tongue out, tail thudding once. Boone tossed beans into a pan and set it on the flame. He didn't speak again until the room had filled with quiet clatter and the crackle of kindling. "Jesse Ray Morris," he finally said, "killed my brother in 71. Shot him in the back, burned the place to hide it. Left his dog behind. Same dog that just followed you to my porch." The woman stiffened. Her face didn't twist in shock, only sorrow. A sorrow that looked practiced. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I tried to stop him. He wasn't what he seemed when we were kids." Boone turned. Sister? She nodded. Half. I left him 2 winters ago, took the girls and ran. He doesn't know where I am. He can't. Boone stared at her. Her clothes were threadbare, her cheeks hollowed, and the dog had 2 ribs showing. But her eyes, they were steady. Not scared. Not even pleading. Just tired. Names? He asked. Cora, she said. The girls are June and Maribel. Boone nodded once. You can stay here tonight. Tomorrow we talk. That's all I'm asking, she said, sinking deeper into the warmth. Boone didn't sleep much that night. He sat near the fire, watching the flames and the quiet figures curled around it, wondering if forgiving Jesse's blood could ever bring peace, or if it would just light a different kind of fuse. By morning, the snow had crusted thin over the corral fence, and the sky turned the color of pale tin. Boone stepped out to feed the horses, but his thoughts stayed inside. Inside that room where Cora and her girls still slept, bundled in patchwork quilts like ghosts hiding from the past. The dog followed him out, padding close, sniffing the air. Boone didn't talk to animals like some men, but this mutt? This one felt like a curse that had circled back. He tossed hay, checked the troughs, then leaned on the gate and watched the trees. The world was too quiet, like the calm that comes when trouble's only a ridge away. Inside, Cora stirred early. She hadn't slept much either. Every creak in the walls, every gust of wind. It all sounded like Jesse's boots finally catching up. She dressed the girls with gentle hands and a flat expression, like a woman who'd done this in too many strange places. Boone came back in, hung his coat, and tossed another log on the fire. What's your plan? He asked. I didn't have one, Cora admitted. I kept moving west. Didn't think I'd make it this far. And Jesse? He's got men, she said. The kind who'd do worse than he would, just to impress him. If they find us... She didn't finish. Boone rubbed the back of his neck. He'd lived a long time by keeping things simple. Keep your head down, keep your boots dry, keep your past buried. But now the past sat in his kitchen, feeding sugar biscuits to 2 girls with his brother's killer's eyes. Why'd you leave him? He asked. Because one night he set fire to a barn full of horses. Laughed while they screamed. That's when I knew. He wasn't just dangerous, he was broken. Boone nodded. That tracked. Jesse Ray had always been a wildfire with legs. You said you ran 2 winters ago. How have you lasted this long? I clean, mend. I'm useful to townsfolk until I'm not. Then I move on. She met his eyes. But this is the first time someone's looked at me like I wasn't part of Jesse. Boone didn't answer. He just looked at the girls, June braiding Maribel's hair while the dog rested its chin on their feet, and felt something old shift inside him. Not anger, not grief, just weight, like a log you'd carried for miles finally being set down. You're not him, he said, but if he comes here, he won't leave again. Cora's breath caught, but she only nodded. Boone stood and went to sharpen the axe. He hadn't planned on saving anyone this winter. But sometimes, the fight finds you anyway. Boone spotted the rider just past midday, a speck on the northern ridge where the pines thinned and the wind carried sound farther than it should. He didn't move like a ranch hand or a trader. He moved like someone looking for something. Or someone. Boone squinted through the sun glare, watching the horse pause, the rider stand in the stirrups, scan the land below, then wheel away like he hadn't seen what he came for. But Boone knew better. Scouts didn't announce themselves unless they wanted you nervous, which meant this wasn't a chance traveler. Jesse Ray was circling. Inside, Cora was boiling beans for supper, humming under her breath. A lullaby, maybe. Boone stepped in and closed the door behind him like a warning. She turned. You saw him. 1, Boone said, looking. He'll be back with more. Cora nodded slowly, like she'd expected it. Then we should go. Boone shook his head. Too late for running. Snow's coming hard tonight. You wouldn't make 5 miles with that wheelbarrow. She sat down hard, eyes wide, face pale. So what do we do? Boone crossed the room and opened a locked cabinet under the stairs. He pulled out 2 rifles, oiled but aged, and set them on the table like old friends being asked one last favor. We make it clear this ain't a place worth dying for. Cora looked from the rifles to the window, where the sky was darkening fast. The girls sat on the floor, quietly playing with sticks and string, unaware that war had already started its slow, quiet knock at the door. He won't come himself, she said. Jesse's a coward when he doesn't have control. That's fine, Boone muttered. I only need one to come through the gate to make a message. That night, he boarded the windows with calm precision, every nail driven like punctuation in a letter he was preparing to send to the man who'd ruined his family. He taught Cora how to load and fire both weapons, showed her the safest place to shelter the girls, and made her promise. If he didn't come back in, she'd run, not back east, not toward law or town, but deep into the canyon country where Jesse wouldn't follow. I won't leave you, she said. Boone looked at her hard. You already did, he said, when you left Jesse. She didn't reply, just stood there, holding the rifle with hands that no longer trembled. By the time the first snowflake hit the window pane, Boone had taken position in the loft with his sights fixed on the gate. He wasn't waiting for peace. He was waiting to see who Jesse Ray had become.
The snow came fast, thickening the world in silence. By nightfall, the trees were cloaked in white, and the wind hissed like breath between clenched teeth. Boone lay prone in the loft above the barn, his rifle steady, eyes on the trail where he knew they'd come. Cora sat downstairs, cradling the twins near the hearth, the second rifle within arm's reach. The dog had taken up a post near the front door, its ears twitching at every creak. Midnight struck without a sound, but just past it, the horses came. 2 of them, maybe 3, moving slow, hooves muffled in snow, the riders speaking in low tones that didn't carry far. Boone didn't blink. He waited until one rider peeled off toward the barn, while the others headed for the house. That was the mistake. The first shot cracked like a branch snapping under God's boot. Boone's bullet took the lead rider clean off his horse, a puff of red blooming on the snow. The others scattered in panic, one man diving for cover behind a water trough, the other scrambling to get his rifle up. Boone fired again, this one grazing a shoulder. It wasn't fatal, but it sent a message. The man screamed, dropped his gun, and ran limping toward the woods. Boone chambered a 3rd round but held it. No need to waste bullets on cowards. From below, Cora hadn't screamed. She'd pulled the girls tight and sat still, eyes locked on the door, waiting. Boone climbed down silently, stepping over the blood-smeared trail where the first man had fallen, his breath steaming in the cold. He dragged the body by the collar and laid it outside the gate. Let them see what came of trespassing. Back inside, he found Cora by the fire, rifle in her lap, sweat on her brow though the room was cold. Was it Jesse? She asked. Not yet, Boone said. Just the first wave. Will he come now? Boone hesitated. He'll come in the morning. He'll want to see it himself. He won't believe his men failed unless he sees blood with his own eyes. Cora nodded, jaw tight. Then we hold the line. Boone looked at her for a long moment. She wasn't just surviving now. She was preparing. He moved closer, took the rifle from her lap, and checked the chamber. You did good, he said. Most folk would have run by now. I've done enough running, she replied. Outside, the wind picked up again, carrying the scent of pine, smoke, and something else, the weight of a reckoning finally making its way down the mountain. The storm broke just after dawn, leaving behind a gray world glazed in frost and silence. Boone stood on the porch, rifle across his chest, eyes fixed on the distant road as the sky lightened slowly. No birds, no wind, just that kind of stillness the earth holds right before something breaks. He didn't have to wait long. The hoofbeats came like a slow drum roll, measured, deliberate. A single rider, mounted on a tall gray roan, wearing a long coat and a hat pulled low. Behind him, no men followed. Jesse Ray Morris came alone. Boone watched him approach, never raising the rifle. Jesse didn't rush. He rode like a man who thought he still held all the cards. When he reached the gate, he dismounted slow, took off his gloves, and tossed them to the snow. The dog, Boone's old dog, stood from the porch and let out a low, warning growl. Jesse looked at it, then looked up at Boone and smirked. "Still loyal, huh?" Boone didn't answer. Jesse walked forward until the barrel of Boone's rifle met the center of his chest. "That's far enough." Jesse raised both hands lazily. "Easy, Keller, I'm not here to fight." "You sent your boys to die in my yard?" Boone said coldly. "Looked a lot like fighting." "They got excited," Jesse shrugged. "Didn't follow orders. I was just looking for family, that's all." "You mean Cora?" Boone said. Jesse's eyes flicked up, surprised. "So she told you." "She told me enough." "Then you know she took what was mine. My blood. My niece's. That dog, too." Boone didn't move. "They're not yours." "Not anymore." Jesse took a slow step forward, pressing his chest into the rifle barrel like he didn't care if it fired. "You think she's some poor runaway? She's got his blood, Boone. Mine. You think she's better than me?" "She left," Boone said. "That's what makes her better." Behind him, the door creaked. Cora stepped onto the porch, the twins clinging to her skirts. Boone didn't look back, but he felt her presence like an anchor. Jesse's face changed when he saw her, turned soft, even sad. "Cora," he said, "you're coming with me." "No," she replied firmly. "I'm not." Jesse's hand twitched near his coat. Boone saw it but didn't flinch. "Don't," Boone said. Jesse looked from the rifle to the woman to the girls. Then he smiled, bitter and tired. "You think this ends clean, Keller? You think I'd just walk away?" "I think if you move again, you don't walk anywhere," Boone said. Jesse's smile faded. He stepped back slowly, raised his hands, and turned toward his horse. "This isn't over," he called. Boone lowered the rifle. "It is for you." Jesse mounted his horse and rode off at a steady pace, but Boone didn't lower his guard until the man was a speck against the pale horizon. Even then, he knew it wasn't over. Not completely. Men like Jesse Ray didn't retreat because they were beaten. They retreated to circle back. Inside, Cora sat at the table with a cup of water she hadn't touched, her fingers trembling just enough to make the surface ripple. The girls were playing quietly by the hearth, unaware that the man who had nearly stolen their mother's soul had come to claim them like property. Boone watched Cora from across the room. "He won't quit," he said. "He's the kind that needs to win, even when there's nothing left worth winning." She looked up, exhausted but calm. "He's got pride, and pride don't care who burns." "I can ride into town tomorrow," Boone offered. "Warn the marshal. Let him know Jesse's sniffing around." Cora shook her head. "You don't know Jesse like I do. Law won't stop him. He's not afraid of jail. He's afraid of being forgotten. He'll come back louder next time." Boone rubbed his chin. "Then we'll be louder still." The words hung heavy in the air, more a promise than a plan. Later that night, Boone found her in the barn, kneeling beside the wheelbarrow she'd arrived in. She was scrubbing it with rags and soap like it was a grave marker. "You don't have to do that," he said gently. "It's part of what got you here." "Exactly," she whispered. "This thing. It carried my girls across the mountains, carried my shame, my choices, and maybe my only good one." Boone leaned against a post, silent for a beat. "He could have drawn on you today. He wanted to, but he didn't." "He wasn't sure if I'd shoot first," she said, "and he was right to wonder." Boone studied her. There was no fear left in her face, just fire. That quiet, steady kind that doesn't rage, but never dies. "Tomorrow we make a plan," he said. "A real one, something that ends this." "Ends it how?" she asked. "With blood?" "No," he said. "With proof. We show people who Jesse Ray really is. He hides behind fear. Let's burn the mask." She nodded slowly, wiping her hands on her skirt. "Then we fight smart." Boone reached for her hand, not romantically, just a touch to ground them both. "You're not running anymore," he said. "I won't let you." For the first time since she'd arrived, Cora smiled, just faintly. But it was real. The kind of smile people only wear when they believe something better might finally be possible. By sunrise, Boone had already ridden to town and back, carrying a folded telegram and a heavy mind. The marshal had given him no promises, only a half-hearted nod and a reminder that Jesse Ray Morris was still just a rumor on paper. So Boone made his own plans. In the woods past the northern ridge, he and Cora worked in silence, stacking logs, digging shallow trenches, setting broken branches in misleading patterns. Boone knew the land better than most men knew their own stories. If Jesse came, they wouldn't face him at the porch. They'd face him in the trees, where the shadows had teeth. "He'll come from the west," Boone said, crouched near a pile of pine boughs. "He always liked the wind at his back." Cora nodded. She wasn't soft with fear anymore. She was sharp with purpose. Dressed in Boone's second coat, her hair braided tight, a revolver at her waist. "If he brings men again?" "We split 'em up," Boone said. "Make 'em think they're winning. Then close the circle." Back at the ranch, the twins helped prepare, stacking kindling, counting jars of water, wrapping biscuits in cloth. Boone showed June how to hold a hammer, showed Maribel how to whistle low, the way birds do before a storm. "If you hear that sound," he told them, "hide and wait. Don't come out till your mama says so." That night, they waited. No fire, no light, just stillness, and the knowing that danger rarely comes with thunder. It comes quiet, like a lie. Around midnight, Boone heard it. A twig snapping too clean, a boot shifting too careful. He raised his rifle, breath held, watching the dark between the trees. Then a shape appeared, too small for a man. The dog. It slipped through the woods and back toward the porch, circling twice before settling. A signal. Someone was near. Boone touched Cora's arm, nodded once, and she moved to her mark, hidden in the trees with her pistol drawn, her jaw set. The first rider appeared not long after, alone, cautious, scanning the slope. He rode into the narrow trail, right where they'd loosened the earth. His horse slipped. The man fell, hard. Boone moved fast, grabbed him, silenced his cry, and tied him to a tree. "One down," he muttered. "He'll have more," Cora whispered from the shadows. "Jesse always sends decoys." Boone turned back toward the trail, eyes narrowing. "Good," he said. "Then let him come. Let him see how it feels when the hunted dig the traps." And from the windless trees came no answer, just silence thick with the promise of reckoning.
Dawn broke slow, bleeding red across the snow-covered ridge. Boone crouched behind a fallen cedar, rifle steady, breath quiet. The forest no longer felt like home. It felt like a crucible. Somewhere below, Cora lay hidden behind a stack of rocks with her pistol drawn, her heartbeat timed to the morning wind. Jesse Ray finally came into view, not like a ghost this time, but like a man certain the world still feared him. He rode alone again, but Boone knew better. 2 more riders flanked him at a distance, moving through the brush like wolves. Jesse dismounted at the edge of the clearing, exactly where Boone had planned. The man scanned the quiet woods, his coat brushing the ground like a shadow. "Cora," he shouted, his voice cut through the pines. "You've made your point. Now bring my blood back before someone else pays for your mistakes." Boone saw Cora's jaw tighten from across the trees, but she didn't rise. Jesse waited, then gestured to one of his men. The second rider crept closer to the cabin trail, until his horse hit the wire Boone had strung. The beast reared, throwing the man backward into the snow. Boone fired before the scream finished. The man slumped still. Jesse didn't flinch. He turned towards the trees. "That you, Boone Keller?" Boone stepped out, rifle aimed. "It's me. You got a thing for cleaning up after dead brothers? Or are you just bored?" Jesse smirked. "Seems to me you're always the one burying folks." "Maybe," Boone said. "But I stop burying when the right man goes down." Jesse drew fast, faster than Boone expected, but the shot missed wide. Boone didn't miss. His bullet clipped Jesse's shoulder, spinning him to the ground. Cora emerged, pistol leveled, face cold. "Get up," she said to Jesse. He struggled to rise, clutching the bleeding wound. "I should have left you in the river," he spat. "You ain't better than me." "I'm better because I left," she said, "because I didn't turn every hurt into hate." Jesse lunged, maybe for her, maybe for the gun, but Boone was already there, fist landing hard. Jesse crumpled. The final rider, seeing the odds, turned and galloped off without a word. Cora stood over Jesse's groaning form, then looked at Boone. "Is it over?" Boone lowered his rifle, breathing heavy. "Only if we make it be." They tied Jesse to a post outside the barn, the same way he'd once tied others without mercy. The snow melted slowly beneath him. For the first time in years, Boone felt the weight in his chest begin to lift. And for the first time in her life, Cora watched a man fall and didn't flinch, because this time, it wasn't her fault. It was justice. By mid-morning, Jesse Ray was gone. Taken by the marshal from town after Boone rode in with the tied-up outlaw slumped over a mule like spoiled cargo. No questions asked, just long looks and a rusted pair of cuffs. The kind of ending nobody sings about, but the kind that lets life begin again. Back at the ranch, Cora stood by the porch with June on one side, Maribel on the other, the dog panting at their feet. Boone dismounted slow, nodding once to say it was done. No celebration. Just silence and cold wind, the kind that finally felt like something new instead of something waiting to hurt. That evening, as the sun melted into the hills, Boone stood beside the old gate. The wooden sign hanging there had once read Keller Ranch, though time and weather had worn it thin. He held a carving knife in his hand and stared at the grain of the wood, thinking. After a moment, he began to shave the surface clean, scraping away the name letter by letter, not to forget, but to make space. Cora walked up behind him, wiping her hands on her apron. "You changing it?" Boone didn't stop working. "I'm letting it become what it is." "And what's that?" He glanced back at her, then at the girls playing in the dirt with sticks and pebbles, their giggles soft but real. "Something that starts with them." Cora smiled faintly and placed a hand on his arm. He stopped carving. She took the knife gently and pressed it back into his palm. "Then finish it," she said. "But don't forget who made it safe." Boone nodded. Slowly, he carved 5 letters into the wood. Haven. Not a last name. Not a claim. just a promise. A place where ghosts ended and healing began. That night, they shared supper around the fire. Boone said little, but he noticed everything. The way Maribel leaned into his side without fear. The way Cora no longer glanced at the door every time the wind moved. The dog curled up between them like it had always belonged. Boone sipped his coffee and let the silence stretch. Not the heavy kind anymore, the peaceful kind, the earned kind. Outside, snow began to fall again, light and clean. Boone stepped onto the porch one last time before bed and looked out across the land. Same trees, same hills. But for the first time in years, it didn't feel like something he was surviving. It felt like something worth staying for. And behind him, inside the walls of a house built by pain and remade by grace, laughter lived again.